So, in summary, fuck Delta, fuck American Airlines, fuck Microsoft, fuck CrowdStrike, and fuck.
Ain't nothing worse than a smart dumb. Hey yo! Hey yo! Hey yo! Hey
Yeah, with that being said, welcome to another episode of the Smart Dumb Podcast. Now, people who might have been following for a while or maybe even gone back and checked out old episodes, first of all, thank y'all for doing that. That's incredible and humbling. What you would have noticed is I do one or two things. I either have a conversation on a topic just to give the thoughts from my perspective, or that give my perspective, or I'll have interviews with entrepreneurs to speak on their expertise, their experience, their goals, etc. Usually, I'm not the type of podcast that's big on the current event kind of situation. I speak on more evergreen topics, something that is always kind of relevant, and do what I do. I think the exception is my little, but I have a couple of power episode recaps that I would try to do. But sometimes things occur, events happen that are abnormal. And I think it's very safe to say that the July 19th airport interruption situation is a big example of something we not didn't see coming, don't see all the time, hopefully don't see ever in my lifetime, or at least anytime soon. So I wanted to speak on it both from a technical standpoint as far as what my research has provided, and then also I'll speak to how it affected me directly, because it definitely affected me directly. Now, first and foremost, again, not comprehensive, but I did do a little research. And basically, there's an organization, a company called CrowdStrike, who serves as a kind of threat detector and preventer, and a by their own. Let me go check their website again. What the beginning of the website or the homepage says, because it was ironic. Like, this is a weird way to go about it. But yes, CrowdStrike, stop breaches and drive business. Now, to be fair, I don't really consider this a breach. As a matter of fact, how they're reporting it, it wasn't a breach. What they said happened is on Friday morning, they released an update. We get updates all the time in our apps, on our phones themselves, on our computers. Like, that's just a thing that occurs regardless of whether it's Windows, regardless of whether it's Apple's operating system, Linux. We get updates for kind of patching up security flaws, opportunities to see that, hey, there was something that we can do better, or improve on, that we didn't haven't gotten to previously, or maybe there was a deployment that led to some issues. And that's, according to their website, what happened on Friday morning. There was an update that did not fully pass their review or authentication, but it still went live. And then the result of the update, which is what we see, is that it caused a lot of interruptions. And for some reason, it hit the airlines very hard. Now, what I found very amusing is it only hit a certain level of Windows user. It didn't touch, I'm sorry, it didn't affect or slow down any Mac or any Linux, um, which is not, that's not the, it's not the probably most known operating system, but as far as technical people, they're probably all too familiar with it, probably swear by it, use it in their personal applications. But it also didn't affect Windows users that had a super old version of Windows, probably because there's certain levels or certain types of windows that are no longer being supported and updated. So in this case, not being updated ended up being a great thing. And that's why Southwest wasn't affected as much as the other big three, American, Delta, and United, because Southwest is on such an older platform. Now that didn't work to their benefit 2 years ago when they had their problems around Christmas time, which also affected my travel. So maybe I should stop traveling. Is it me? Am I the drama? Again, yeah. So they released a bad update. It apparently took them a while to roll it back, and for whatever reason, it for sure took all of Friday for the airlines to get back right, and in some cases, it was still affecting over that weekend into the start of the next week. So I think that's enough technical jargon. Again, also tried to be a high level, not acting like I know every single details. I'm sorry. Let me just give a quick analysis on it. It's hard to tell how much of this is true and how much of this is the story they're willing to share. So, I mean, CrowdStrike is owning up to it. They're taking responsibility. You respect that. The as the IT background I have, it's not the release of software, but I've released things that went live, and that's when they had issues that went live, and they needed to get rolled back. It was a pretty serious interruption, so that happens. I don't expect perfection from any IT team or programmer at any level, but they definitely clearly did not do a great job of mitigation from the standpoint of, hey, if we see something doesn't work, we're just going to quickly go back to when it did work because it was fine when it did work. We were just trying to make it slightly better, but obviously we're not there yet. It took a very long time. Hours is a very long time in business to be down and inoperable. So for this to have lasted even that Friday, much less Delta seeming to have the most problems. Now, this is also related to Windows, and if anybody's familiar with Windows, Windows is consistently a very problematic. It's a shitty company, just in my opinion, of course. But their software is just very it's plenty of flaws that exist all over it, and they're at the point now where going in there to fix every little detail. It's not a good business move. It's a great honorable and moral move, but American business capitalism isn't about doing the right thing. Don't worry about what they say in the website and in the commercials. In reality, we're just trying to make the next buck, do better this year than we did last year, keep the investors happy. And investors don't really give too much of a fuck about what's in the best interest of the customer. They just want to keep the customer happy enough to keep using the software. And unfortunately, customers don't really care about quality either. That's definitely a different topic, a different conversation that spans business to music to entertain to the rest of entertainment, movies, and all that type of stuff. There also, for sure, are other factors and other things that occurred are occurring. They might be messing up as of the time I'm recording and the time you might be watching or reading it. That is, has been an issue that's been exposed, and they're not going to share this with the public. There's not a good reason to share it with the public. There's different levels of people that might just read about it on the news. There's somebody else that's like me that's slightly more into it. And then there's like some tech gurus who are really studying the technical jargon. They're really interested in it. And they're also going to put on their I know everything goggles and scrutiny goggles. Why didn't you do this? Why did you should have done that? And all this type of stuff. And again, that's the type of person who acts like they've never done anything incorrectly in programming, and you can't really put too much stock into them. But unfortunately, the companies involved invited the scrutiny by how much they messed up to the point that it was publicly recognizable. All right, so I think that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Some of it was exactly what they said it was. Some of it's been hidden or unreported or unknown. Um, and that type of thing does happen, but we definitely don't like when it affects to the level that it affected and ruined the reputation of multiple organizations except for Microsoft because they already suck and people seem to not care. Probably never get sponsored by Microsoft, and I'm okay with that. Fuck them. So now let's switch over to how did this, what the effects are in real life, and I can don't have to look far than to just speak about that person in my mirror who it affected because it definitely affected me. So I had two travel days, I guess we'll say, two travel periods around that span. The first one was Saturday, the July 20th. I was making my way to Atlanta from Maryland. So my flight was originally going to be the first thing in the morning on Saturday, and then the connector to where my final destination was. The airline prices were not favorable to me, so I found an Amtrak ride that was going to be at the very end of the night, 11:30, like it would have been a red eye train. So the original plan was I get in super early in Atlanta, I hit up some folks that live out there, hang out, spend the day, let the time pass, and then make this train go to sleep, and that train get to my final destination super early and on about my Sunday. What happened in reality is Friday night I spent all the finalizing of packing that I was doing. I finally finished and was all set to go, late Saturday morning. And then I woke up, what do they call it, late Friday morning, early, 2 or 3, basically. Then I woke up first thing on Saturday so I could get ready and head to the airport. So I woke up about 6 something or 7. But at 5 o'clock, that's when Delta sent the first email that this flight was among the affected and there was going to be a delay. So at that point, I've I was optimistic that although the issues were occurring all throughout Friday, they wouldn't have really lasted on Saturday. That was wrong in two ways. One, Saturday didn't fully just remove all problems, but two, it ended up that Delta had the most issues dealing with these flight delays and calculations and count and cancellations. And that's who I was flying on Saturday. The good thing that I will say about Delta and why I'm not as bothered by them is they gave the delays and or cancellations very early before the actual flights, which meant I didn't end up heading to the airport until the evening. But what actually happened was I woke up and that flight was canceled. Now I hop on the phone, but at the same time I'm on the internet. It took me a while, first of all, because it was 6 o'clock and I already had a long night. But it clicked to me like I need to hurry up and get on something. So I'm just gonna have to be tired right now. I gotta get right and fix this because these are flights. This is a flight I need to make. It's involving family, so it's important. Excuse me. So I call while I'm waiting on the phone, then I hit the internet. Now, the system that they use for rebooking, like, delays and cancellations occur often. They have an automated software that handles it. They're probably used to, I say, maybe few hundred, a few thousand people trying to hit that server, get on, reschedule, all that type of stuff. This was a much larger magnitude of people who had, again, delays and cancellations and needed to rebook and reschedule. So they would just casually send you to a different page if you didn't really get in. For those who may be into sneakers, I'm sure there's some other examples. When a sneaker drop release happens, only a certain amount of people get into the system. Even back when PlayStation and Xbox was first being released for a while, there's that same concept. If you have a server load, we can handle a certain number of people. Everybody else just has to try again or just it's already out. So that's what kept happening. I would try to go into the website. At first, it just was sending me to a different page. Sometimes it would send me into this kind of portal, we'll say, that was giving me the opportunity to look into alternative flights. So originally they just kind of automatically put me on a Monday flight, and that just plain wasn't going to work because not only did I need to handle the weekend trip, but I had a vacation, which we will definitely speak on, that started Monday. So now that flight was going to make me miss those flights, and I'm not going to sign up for that. So I kept refreshing. Fortunately, there ended up being openings on the same day. What I'm assuming is people who were on that flight hopped off, took a different one, canceled altogether. So now all of a sudden there was some openings that didn't previously exist. So managed to take that one because at first there was some Sunday options and that was cool. I could have dealt with that, but for there to be a same day option, my whole thing was the sooner I get in the system, any delays would I have a better chance of navigating them versus taking something later and then that having its own round of delays and then again spilling into Monday, which was just not going to be good. So I got this flight and it got delayed from I don't remember when it this secondary flight, I don't remember when it was originally scheduled, but it got delayed over and over before I left the house to 8 o'clock or 8:30 or something like that. So I was like, well, what am I rushing for? Like, I'm not going to voluntarily sit around at the airport all the time. So once it hit about 6:30, there had not been any more scheduled delays. So I went ahead and made my way to the airport. We get checked in. That part was smooth. I don't remember if we used the kiosk. That's foreshadowing, but it was just a smooth pass through checking in and also security. So now we're at the gate and then a new round of delays occurred. Is what it is, but also understood. Basically, I think we were delayed from 6:30. We didn't even board till like a 9 something. Then we got on the plane. That was the craziest part. We got on the plane and salute to the pilot. I think he was just giving us worst case scenario, but there was some technical issues or mechanical issues they had to address on the plane, and he was saying, look, if this takes too long, we might actually have to cancel this flight as well. So again, that one's kind of tricky. Like I appreciate him giving us heads up versus just like it getting to the point and he's just like, hey, by the way, this is canceled. Sorry, y'all. But it scared the shit out of people. There was a groan up and down the airplane because I'm sure there are people who have been at that airport all day at this point. And definitely people who wanted to have been finished, thought they would have been their destination at 9 o'clock, 2 p.m., even 6 p.m. And now here we are, more like an arrival time of 11 and midnight. So that delay occurred. Finally, it got right. Finally, our plane actually took off. Praise God, it got, we landed all that. That was 1 o'clock when I arrived in Atlanta. Mind you, again, this was supposed to be in originally at 9:50 a.m. on Saturday. Here it is, over 12 hours later, and we're finally landing. When I left, when we deplaned, there were massive lines, and it was just fascinating to me. It was like they was trying to get into the Atlanta club scene, the strip clubs, and all that. And I just couldn't understand it because I'm like, why? I'm surprised they're even still like it made it seem like they were still trying to get people on board to some flight. I'm surprised at 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. that whatever situation wasn't just straight up canceled. Probably it was also people like me. I'm big into tech. If I can get on the phone or I can get on the computer to handle something, I'm going to do it. But others, I can see the scenario where they're like, "Oh, I'm not leaving security. I'm not leaving past security. If I go out, I can't get back in. I'm looking at a gate agent in their face. I'm just going to sit in a line and get these other things situated." Also, they probably were in line for the whole voucher hotel circumstance, just a mess. So I'm not going to say what the right or wrong way for people to handle. It's not the customer's fault at all that these things occurred, but it was crazy to see that line, and it kind of made me just perspective like, all right, well, my situation is not as bad. What was wild is the zoo that was in baggage claim, and that doesn't surprise me. Atlanta's always busy. It's quite the problematic airport. But now you're talking about delays and all that type of stuff. So there were three bags that I needed to account for. There are, I'd say, just on one half of the baggage claim, I feel like there might be up to about 8 or 10, um, whatever them circles of things are, the roundabouts that drop off the baggage. There were so many bags. There were also just lined up. You know how when the flight or when that flight's bags have arrived and it hasn't been claimed, they just kind of move it out the way and kind of line them up. I think I was at three different locations to find my three different bags. One of them was circulating. One of them was in one row of bags off the circulator, and another was in a completely different row. Just madness, just random. And I mean, thank God that mine were available. Nobody took them. Like I've never had my bags stolen, but we're just around, and I happen to identify them, recognize them, and retrieve them. I know that wasn't everybody's situation. Some people had connecting flights, and you don't know when the bag was stayed there where they're currently stuck, or just went ahead to the final destination. Now they're not with it. So again, not excited about Delta, but that experience was manageable. And I believe by Monday or by Tuesday, they already released flight credits to me regarding the experience. So I don't know if I'm okay with $300. I'm not gonna hold you, but I imagine they'll also add more to it later. But again, it's fuck Delta, but they actually handled everything the best out of my full experience. So with that being said, let's get into American Airlines. Now, the irony of me being so worried about Delta in arriving in Atlanta prior to Monday is how crazy American Airlines was. So that began with, again, a very early flight. It was a trip to Cabo. I've been to Mexico multiple times, but I've never been to Cabo. Super dope. Reason we're surprising a young lady. She had surprised her husband with a trip last year. He's returning the favor this year. I don't know the people personally. The My girl knows them, and I got invited. So cool. It's Cabo. What do you mean? Like, and in a completely different note, which I'm sure I'll detail one day. By the time this trip happened, I needed this trip to happen. Work is, whew, whew. Let's just leave it there for now. So we get to that airport early, multiple hours before. It's always recommended 3 hours. We got there basically just under 3 hours prior to the flight. I got my passport. My girl had her passport recently. It's brand new, all fancy looking, all that type of stuff. So we arrive at the airport and there are self check-in kiosks. So I'm good. Mine just goes through, I read my passport, they get all the details. I say which bags I'm checking, boom. Her passport, they say, hey, we need some more information. You're going to need to see a gate agent. Now, it's very interesting that the newer one is the problematic one. It's not surprising because that's a similar situation to CrowdStrike and their problems. They always push to get the latest and greatest, but the latest isn't always the greatest, especially when it's super brand new or, new enough. So now we have to sit in a line, and the unfortunate thing is that it took us 2.5 hours to get through this line. This is how backed up Charlotte's airport is. American Airlines was dealing with the previous day's problems that spilled over into this day. So we're all just crawling 2.5 hours. Where I want to salute that group. We did a great job collectively of not losing our shit. Everybody's tired, everybody's bothered, everybody's exasperated, but people just kind of converse with the person right next to them. For example, young lady in front of me was heading to Jamaica, I believe, for a birthday situation, whatever the case was. She had to deal with some random delays, so we were definitely hoping that her situation was finally good later that day. There was another young lady who she was going through it. She ended up just hopping out the line and doing her rescheduling via phone and internet because it just wasn't worth it. She had already too late to make the flight, this flight that she's considering now. So just a lot of a resolve and maturity that people had to express, and I give those folks in that Charlotte line a lot of credit in that Charlotte line, in the American Express gate, not the gate, the check-in line. I give them a lot of credit. It could be worse, and I saw worse. So anyway, by the time we get to the gate agent, she knows like this flight, we're not boarding this flight. It left on time. It left with like a 10-minute delay. So we didn't move fast enough. They weren't in a situation. Sometimes they'll check in and say, okay, who's like really close to missing their flight? Let's prioritize y'all. But everybody was delayed. Everybody was close to missing their flight or missed their flight and needed. So at that point, we're now in the queue of everybody else. Like sometimes TSA pre-check takes longer than the general boarding because there's that many people who got pre-check, and now the VIP line, the shortcut is longer than the regular. It's crazy how that works, and this is one of those cases. So we get rebooked to now have a layover in Dallas. So that one was like, I don't know, two more hours ahead of time. So it's like, okay, but at least we know we'll be there in time to get ready to board. The one thing that really annoyed, and my girl was the one that recognized it. I didn't even pay attention at first. That same passport that didn't work at the kiosk immediately scanned when we got to the gate agent. And we still haven't gotten an explanation on that one. They're gonna have to break that one down for me. What is it about this software that works that software didn't work? Especially when the gate, not even the gate agents, the whatever you call the people roaming, kept saying, "Oh, just go to the kiosk, just go to the kiosk." Like the kiosk was the brand, that was the grand poobah, all knowing, all powerful machine. So, whole time that wasn't the one that got us right. So we got rescheduled, we got rebooked. Okay, cool. We just breezed through security. That wasn't an issue at all, and I'm appreciative for that. We get to our gate, thinking Charlotte, I don't. Oh, Charlotte, I do have access to lounges. Shout out to, I guess they're not sponsored, but shout out to Capital One Venture X Card. I love them. That gave me access to a lot of lounges. In that particular one, I think we just didn't have enough time. Uh, there was so many people trying to get in there as a queue, whatever. Didn't work that time. No big deal. So we're waiting in Charlotte, and as we approach in 11:30 or noon boarding time, we learn that this one is having its own issues. Now, the issue was the lavatory, and they're not going to go in the air with a faulty lavatory, which seems weird, but I also get it. That was a 2 hour plus flight, and somebody taking a shit and it not getting processed however it gets normally processed would have been a problem. So, all right. that leads into the fact that these airlines have their normal delays and cancellations, planes being something being up with the plane, the overbooking that happens these days where a pilot lands in this plane and then has to run over and handle that one. So if this is delayed and that one's delayed. It's just a mess. The airline industry is an absolute mess right now. And on that note, it's wild. I believe it's American Airlines that their employees are striking because their CEO is making stupid amounts of money, and those who are on the front line making sure that we get from one destination to the other. The pilots might be okay, but the flight attendants are getting paid like shit. I know somebody who has been very vocal about that on social media, and I hope that that industry continues to fight that company because they need to do better. The leadership keeps collecting all this money, and then the people that actually have to deal with us and get us good and right to our destinations and calm people down when they're justifiably upset and flustered are getting peanuts. And that's one of the things, again, I know I hopped off topic. That's one of the big problems we have with capitalism that I'll probably, address more soon. Anyway, that flight, that airplane, we're not going to get on that anymore. Now we need to figure out, okay, what's the airplane? When is it going to arrive? So now we have delays on the flight to Dallas with the connecting flight to Cabo. The connecting flight is enough time in advance that, okay, if it's just one or two delays, cool, we'll make it. We can get over. We could be in Cabo on Monday. All right, we get one delay and another delay. We get another delay that's at the point that's like, all right, if we land right this moment, it's actually very unlikely that we make the connecting flight. But they kept delaying past it, and it became clear that we're not going to Cabo today. We're not making it to Cabo on Monday. Where similar again to my Delta experience, we should have been there at like noon or something early with plenty of the rest of the day. We're supposed to be in Cabo right now, trying to check in, trying to, have our first drink, unwind, all that type of stuff. That wasn't going to be our Monday. So that gate agent in Charlotte, I wish I had her name. This was the best experience that I had in the whole situation. I was at first she was trying to be optimistic, like maybe we could still make the connector. Then it became obvious we weren't going to make it, so she immediately did as much as she could. She got us rebooked on a first thing in the morning flight the next day. I was trying to say, hey, can we cancel Dallas and attempt the Charlotte to Cabo nonstop in a future day? And the problem was those were no longer available. All immediate nonstop flights were already booked. Okay, cool. So it made sense to actually go to Dallas first, and then Dallas to Cabo is a possible situation. We get that book, so now at least we know we're ticketed. We're taking the earliest flight available because that's usually my rule of thumb and way how I travel is like the first thing in the morning flights usually have the least problems. And if you get delayed, at least you're getting delayed into early in the day still, rather than mid a flight that starts midday and then gets delayed into evening, right? So we have that set. She's telling us to make sure we get a hotel voucher over there, make sure we get a food voucher, make sure we get a cab voucher, transportation to said hotel. Like food, you're the best. Thank you for your help. Wooty woo, all that. So finally, I think it's about 4 o'clock, 3, 4 something. That's when we finally board the plane to get to Dallas. The one other thing that's annoying about that is so basically there were two planes to Dallas that both got delayed, and the one we were on original boarding time was earlier than the second one. However, the second one ended up having the smaller delay, so they boarded and they left first. Meanwhile, this one continued to get delayed, I believe, about 2 hours after that one left. So that was weird, a little annoying, but whatever. At this point, incompetency and difficulties and challenges is the name of the game, right? So whatever the time is, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, we board, we head to Dallas. The Dallas to Cabo took off like it was long gone. So now we're in Dallas, and I tried to get on the chat, American Airlines chat, to get the whole food voucher, travel voucher, cab voucher situation going. They tell me that because they're in the customer service online, who knows where they are. Again, somewhere super cheap. So American Airlines can keep this big profit margin that only the executives get. But because they have that set up, they don't have the means to get us set up for Charlotte, for all those things in Charlotte. So we have to wait in a gate. We have to wait in customer service. What should not surprise anybody is the customer service lines were backed up again. Ultimately, it took us another 2 hours to actually get seen. And once again, everybody else has the same problem. I mean, I believe that that line was basically the get booked, get a cab line. So they're not going to prioritize us over anybody else. And all the gate agents, although the chat said that the gate agents could help us, the gate agents was like, no, it has to be this one customer service. We could have risked going to one of the other terminals, but more than likely they just had lines just as crazy. So we would have traveled just to sit in another line. So this ended up being the best case scenario. Along the way, my girl actually started. She had some illness situations that was happening, kind of related to too much travel, and we weren't eating, and that was starting to piss me off because now I'm just watching her doubled over in discomfort at the seat, and we're over here crawling. So I give credit to that lady at customer service. She didn't make this difficult at all. She just got everything together. So I don't like to get attitudes with customer service, but she would have had one time to have any kind of resistance and it would have been an issue, but she didn't. So I kept myself together. So we had a room now. We have these funky ass little $12 food vouchers, which is laughable to me. And then according to the cab person, that was really only for the next morning, not for currently. And I'm like, well, why are you feeding us tomorrow morning? We're hungry now. So, and then we got a cab voucher. So, hotel and cab was cool. The cab was the most straightforward. The weird thing about that is the understandable thing about that is that these have a fixed value. It's not a very large value. So a lot of cab companies do not honor it. So now just the few that do, I'm sure there's a subsection of drivers. So basically it probably took us 15 to 20 minutes to get the cab ride. I'm sure we could have done Lyft or Uber, but we would have had to front it. So this was just, hey, we hand them that. We're good to go. So we get in the car, we get taxied over to the hotel. The hotel was a Comfort Inn in Dallas. It was funky or raggedy as shit. It was so bare bones. It looked nasty. The cleaning was subpar. The ice machine didn't work. It was just like, I actually don't know if I believe that was a 2-star hotel. It felt cheaper than that. And so then what was weird about it, ultimately, beyond everything, I think the weirdest part was that this hotel didn't even have the toiletries available. If this is your hotel that you're booking people because they just had a delayed or canceled flight, you know that there's a good chance that their bags that were checked are not with that individual. Some exceptions occur, but a lot don't. So we were one of those. We didn't have the toiletries with us. So for you to send us to a hotel that doesn't have those on deck is yet another raggedy ass move by American Airlines. And I had a lot of respect for them, but this one really took a knock. Like I said, Delta, they took a little bit of a hit, but this really made me now I want to fuck with American when I don't have to. So anyway, but it's free and it's betting and it's all that type of stuff. So we post up and stay at this hotel. Get up the next morning, very simple process. We called a number of the cab company. They were out super fast. There was another gentleman that needed to get picked up. So I guess he requested an earlier time. So they're ready actually before us. But we get ready, we head out there, we get to the airport. I'll keep it short for that. Tuesday, there were no problems. We get to the airport, we get checked in, the passport. No, that's what, again, coming back to the lady on Monday in Charlotte, she had us write that she had the ticket. She handed us a ticket. So there was nothing to do but walk in and go straight through security, which is another reason why we did not want our bags because we didn't want to reset that process. So we get there, we walk in. The one saving grace that I might almost say it was worth it is I didn't realize that Dallas had, they ultimately had three lounges that were available to me. One was ready at 5, one was ready at 6. So we went to the 5 o'clock one. It was all right, but they had some stuff that wasn't ready, currently in maintenance or whatever the case is. So we got what was available. I was too early for a drink too. So then I'm like, okay, let's check out what is this other lounge that's about to open at 6. That other lounge just so happens to be a flagship Capital One lounge that is only available. I think it's free for Venture X. It may be available for the other cars, but you have to pay whatever the case is. Now, the thing with these lounges are the Venture and the Venture X card is Capital One getting into that space to compete with. Chase has one, but the true big dog in that is American Express Platinum, and I think one below it. Like they're the ones that give you that airport lounge, that airport card that gives you lounge access and concierge access and all that type of stuff. Super fancy, really dope for those that are actually gonna utilize all that. For me, when I was doing the comparison, the Venture X had just good enough and at a price that was very friendly to me, so that's what I went with. I mean, when you compare it to every other card I had prior, this is by far the best card I've ever had in my life. The first one I paid a annual fee for because the perks canceled out. So anyway, I got stuff. Listen, Capital One, it, we're going to talk because I love y'all, but I ain't about to keep, you know, advertising for y'all for free. But anyway, that was one of their lounges. They have currently only three open. One is in Dulles. I've checked that out late last year. There's this one that I've just caught, and then there's Denver, which I haven't had a chance to go to, even though I was in Denver last year. Or probably, if I'd have known, I might have gotten myself to the airport early. But we'll make that happen. I have to put that on the list to experience these because the short version is I love these lounges. Even somebody I know who is used to the luxury travel, wanted to know and is impressed by the Capital One lounges. So, these are very impressive, top of the line. We ate well. Unfortunately, I had to head to the air to the flight before I was able to get the drinks, but just a wonderful, really dope experience. So I'm actually glad that we accidentally ended up at the city that had one of these lounges and I can check off that list. So we're sat there, eating great, feeling great. We get to the plane, board the plane, no problem. Arrive, no problem. This is the first international flight I've ever been in where the customs was so short. I mean, we talking like I want to say 30 minutes or less. Just super fast. Like we weren't in a line with a whole bunch of other people trying to get into Mexico or Cabo at that time. And from there, we everything about Cabo was beautiful, nearly everything. We had a great experience. The whole promotion, listened to a presentation ended up being really good. It gave us access to some discounted attractions. They did sneak some, oh yeah, by the way, there's also this fee type shit, but we were in a all inclusive resort. And ultimately, I don't think I spent a whole lot on this trip. The original thing it was for was an amazing experience. So many dope people I have now met. A couple I'm sure I'm going to keep in touch with. And things like, or a few that I'm going to keep in touch with. other super amazing people coming from Chicago and Utah, super dope gentleman from Utah, Ireland, bunch of Dallas Cowboys, like a group of Dallas Cowboys fans. Y'all niggas lame, but whatever. You know, I hope you enjoyed your time too. So it was a really, really good experience. We unfortunately got caught up, had a little bit too much fun on the last night. These things happen. But yeah, and then on the way back, very, very straightforward, simple experience. We just had it was just a long flight and a long drive to get back, but we got back. So we're back, back home, and all that's cool. All's well that ends well, although it didn't necessarily end well because now I don't really have much to say to Delta. Like I said, they've already given some some vouchers and things like that. I imagine they'll give some more when it's all said and done, the dust settles, because they have the most PR that they need to fix. American Airlines, count y'all motherfucking days. I've already sent the email. You know, I documented it here. You know, there's a couple more follow-ups that I got to do, but yeah, they all got to do a whole lot better than what you displayed. Especially when y'all think about it, if we recap, this is Monday. This is 3 days after the actual outage occurred, and supposedly they had already gotten everything together. So the fact that this was happening at all, much less to that magnitude of everything I described, and it's probably worse for somebody else out there, right? So very bad look by American, very bad look by Delta. Although Delta didn't affect me personally, they were awful overall, and they need to do better. Uh, yeah, it's just, you know, again, I'll touch on it later, but yeah, just the veil of these big companies, they're really just big on name. They are pretty trash now, but it's their fault because they keep trying to grab more business, but they don't actually know how to handle it. And they got exposed. All the airlines and Windows and CrowdStrike got exposed in a pretty big way on that weekend. But again, to their credit, this the 1 week later when I was traveling back into the States, it wasn't nearly to that situation that it was. It was more like business as usual, right? So I think that pretty much kind of covers it. I, again, I needed this vacation. I'm glad I had this vacation. Short of the beginning travel of it, everything about it was great. And I appreciate so many people. The staff was great. I was at a hotel reunion. The staff is great. The Their it's yet another situation. Their offerings is subpar. I don't know that I don't think I'll be able to read you anytime soon. But I really, 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 really enjoyed the bartenders, the ladies at the front desk. Like that experience was wonderful. I have no complaints. 5 star. Is just where they work needs to be improved. So hey, I hope as they move in their career, they get to better situations out there and continue to deliver stellar service uh, like they did. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, definitely um, the episode that was going to fall in this time slot. I had to bump it back. Like this one, I just was like, nah, this was one of them current event things. I just want to address now. So, hey, I guess I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe the informative part for those who didn't know the technical side. If the my plight entertained y'all just from like the wow, that was a lot of shit happening, then good. Hopefully you didn't experience anything like this. Don't anytime soon. Hopefully you're motivated to kind of look to see what you can do proactively to avoid or mitigate a situation like this. But hey, that's what it is. That's what it was, and we'll see what it will be. So thank you all for tuning in for yet another episode of the Smart Dumb Podcast. And I'm looking to continue to deliver the content, whether it's my own speak or interviews. So until next time, I appreciate y'all tuning in. And until next time, peace.